Alright, this is going to be kind of a long video. As some of you may have seen, Unreal just put out the MetaHumans project. And I did a previous video on how to get the Unreal Python plugin, Unreal Engine Python plugin compiled inside of 4.26 of Unreal. And the MetaHuman project only works on 4.26. So this project, this video is going to be about how I am porting the earlier 4.25 code to control the morph targets using the plugin on the like 2 videos ago. I just had a short clip on that, but it turns out that you have to do it differently anyway. So let's go on over to that project. So the way this works, or the way it needs to work, is that I'll just go over this project, but you know, some of the code is different. So this is the Eisko model that has all the morph targets that I need, and what I had to do is create a pi character blueprint. You have to create a blueprint that is the Python version. Right, see PyChar BP, pawn actor. These show up when you install the plugin. So you have to create that blueprint, and then you have to add the mesh, which is this lady, to the blueprint. And then you have to create a regular animation blueprint that also has that mesh in there, so you can get to the morph targets and other things. So if we see the mesh, you could see all the morph target names. Here's the bones. Nothing really underneath animation other than they give you this animation right here. I'm not using that. And then back to the blueprint. Nothing in the anim graph because I'm using the blueprint to drive everything. So when we look at the events, wrong thing. So there's nothing in the anim blueprint other than, let's see, I'm not using this variable. So when you go into the PyChar blueprint, nothing in the construction script, and now you have the secret sauce. So I'll go over this real quick, and then you're going to see the kind of the same thing in the MetaHumans. Difference is that we're going to be getting at the curves instead of the morph targets. Still learning all the stuff between the control rig and the morph targets and the curves, but I just figured it out, some of it out. So on your BP, which is the Python version of the blueprint, and you know that because when you click on here, you'll see your module and this class. Just like in the last video, the difference is right now is we're going to change some things. So on the event graph, the begin play, we want to get a hold of the animation instance and we want to set it as a local variable. We'd then set a timer up, and this is the best way. Right now I know how to do it. So every 1/10 of a second, it's going to call this custom event, and it's going to get the attached Pi character methods, and it's going to extract the data out into local variables. So every 1/10 of a second, this is what happens. So we can do this again. We can say call, and if you have the Python engine, the Unreal Engine Python plugin in, you can see you can call methods on your class, which is over here. And then if we go to edit window Python editor, there is our PyChart class with the code that you've seen in the past. And this is standard stuff that using 0MQ, PyChart class, I gave it any name, whatever. The difference with this code is that it's just basically this thread is running, and it's constantly going every 1/10 of a second and extracting this data structure from the server. So you should be vaguely familiar with this, and as you can see here, we have the methods that return the values. So we can get out of that, Louis base, and again, I wouldn't get too hung up over how some of this works. So in here, we're extracting these values and we're setting them to local variables. So this is how you call into the Python class right here to get the data. That's not doing nothing. Then what we do on event tick, we set a local variable. We promoted this to a local variable, delta time, and then this is how you would set a morph target, and then this is how you'd set a morph target with the float interpolation. So you notice up here, can't see it, we have local blink right here, and then you notice this is local mouth, and then we're using that local mouth as the target. So that just got updated from the Python 0MQ code. Then what we want to do is interpolate to that value. So with our mesh, we can get the morph target by name, and that's the list of morph targets that you'll see. And then we get whatever the current value is, because we just set it a couple of milliseconds ago. Now we're going to read it back out, the current value, target value, delta time, and then I don't know, let's see, I'm using the anim right here as the target to set the morph target. I don't even think I need to do that because we just got the morph target right here. Anyway, this could be a screw up on my part, but it works. And this will set the value. So as the ticks are coming along, they are updating that morph target. Just happens to have this name. And then you'll see I blink left, morph target. It's the same pattern over and over again. And then same pattern over and over again. So this worked relatively well. This is something figured out, and I was pretty proud of myself. The next version doesn't quite work that way, and it's much more complicated. So that is this version. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kill this. Now here's the new version. So if you got the MetaHumans project and you watch the other video and you have C++ installed and you can compile, you don't have to compile. I actually posted on the last video the GitHub, and I pre-built the 4.26 plugin Unreal Engine Python plugin DLLs. So you don't have to recompile anything, you just have to install them, and I go over that in the last video. So today I figured out how to do this, which is a little bit more powerful, and I had to, this is the standard MetaHuman project. I went ahead and created a new map. I created a pi character, which we know we have to do, right? Because we've got to have our code, right? Same thing. A little bit of a difference here. This is some of the same code, anim BP. That's the same thing. Set timer, get the values. I did have to put in this anim, start playing this anim montage in here, and this is a copy from basically the face underscore anim BP, which comes with the MetaHuman project, and you can see in the anim graph it's pretty sophisticated. I didn't do anything here in the event graph. The anim graph, I copied a bunch of stuff. So that's theirs. This is mine. So I'm relatively new to this. I literally copied these nodes like some over here. And I saw a video to where you're supposed to basically cache the pose. And with that cached pose, you can do some things. So what we're doing here is, and I think you have to have a default slot in a anim BP anim graph, and I went and I looked at this and took it apart, and they've got the AR kit in there, but the thing that I liked right in here is this modify curve, and so we'll go over that. As you can see, here's another slot. Then they're doing some other stuff after the fact with this modify curve, and these curves in here are basically attached to this guy, so this girl. So if we go over here, here are the morph targets, but if you go into animation, skeleton, in the skeleton you have these curves. You see these names right here. So we're modifying the curves, and we're not modifying the morph target. So the skeleton has the curves, the mesh has the morph targets, and in another video that I put in the trash, I went over these morph targets, which they barely move anything, so I just blew it off. Here's some animation that they have in there. I don't use that. So we'll get rid of this, we'll get rid of this, but you can see these curve names. Get rid of this, get rid of this. So, and we'll get out of here. So what I did, and what we do, is we have in our anim graph, we just create a float variable, show teeth value, and then we plug that into our alpha. And by doing that, it will change as you notice right here, it kind of goes slow, and that's why I don't think you're supposed to do that right there, and then you have to recompile. I copied this from the other anim. They got some other things in here with ARKit. We are not doing that, but it's basically a carbon copy of this thing. Now, then we go into the event graph. There's nothing in here in the anim BP other than those variables that we are going to change from our uh, our pi character BP. So you'll see the same interpolation, the mouth position, and now I call it show teeth, whatever. I just got this working. You have to get the value from the anim BP as the current. Here's the local that we're updating with the Python code, and then we're setting that value right here. So that's setting that value. So this will work. If we come back over here, now like I said, we've got to always crank up our server or we will have some problems. So we crank the server up, move that over here, come back over here. You got to have the server running before you hit play. We hit play. She's just kind of sitting there. Move up, shift F1, come over to this guy. There you go. So we are moving all of those from Python, and it's shooting over and it's doing the interpolation, which is nice. So then we hit stop, and then what we would do in this example is basically modify some more curves. So in order to do that, we have to add a pin for the blend pose. And then we're going to modify curve. And then we already have the blink variable. I already created that. No big deal. It's a public float. And then what you do is you right click this thing and you say add a curve. So now that was really nice. So now we go way down, you see these expressions, right? So these are the curves that are on the skeleton. Go figure. So we'll do the eye blink left, and then we will do the eye blink right. Okay. And then let's see, what did I do? Let's see how I did this. Let's do this to here. Let's do this to here. No, I don't want to do that. I think I just did this and compiled it. And there is no source pose. Okay, so that's compiled. And that's kind of strange. 2, 3. You know, this has some. I think this worked. That's funny. Okay, our server is running. Let's go back and look at the event graph. Oh yeah, might help if we hook all that back up. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to Control C, Control V, delete that one, local blink, and then what we're going to want to do is come out here and say get let's see, what was it? Get Yeah, get blank. This is getting the value. And then we want to come back out here and we want to say set blank. And then we want to come into, whoops, wrong one. Come on now. I'll call it. We're setting the value back. Then we compile. Save. Save all. Let's see what happens. We do play. Let's get a little bit closer. Shift F1. Come back over here. And then it makes me look stupid. Okay. Oh, let's run it again. And we know that's working. Let's see what was screwed up. Blink. Set it. Yeah, local blank. Okay, I bet you it has to do with this, I think. Oh, this has to be 1. This has to be 1. Let's do that. Compile. Run it. There you go. Yeah, you have to have those values in there. So that's a relatively long video, and I still want. Right now we're manipulating morph targets and we're manipulating curves, and I don't know which is more powerful. I want to try to manipulate the control rig. That's the next issue with this. If you notice this guy right here, this doesn't have a control rig associated with it. And you can get to the morph targets, you can get to the curves, and that gives you more power, but you really have to run these things. As you can see, you have to blend all these things together, whereas on the control rig, that's already done for you and you're just moving the effectors. So that is going to be the next thing I'm going to experiment with. But this video is pretty much getting people up to speed with not only the new MetaHumans using the Python plugin, but also the last project, which will probably move on from that, since this stuff just came out from Unreal, and they're going to have a huge framework and everything for it. So that is all I'm going to do right now on this. This is the second stab at this video, and I tried to use morph targets and it wouldn't work right. And I don't even know if I'm doing this right, but at least things are moving around, and that's pretty trick for 4.26 and the MetaHumans project. So that's about it for right now, and